Good morning to all. I am Professor Navneet Kaur from Department of Electronics and Communication from Sagar Institute of Research and Technology College. Today in this session, I'll be discussing lab practicals of subject Digital Signal Processing EC 601. First, we will have a look at the list of experiments. Now in today's session, we will be taking experiment number 5, which is write a Matlab program to compute and plot circular convolution of two signals. The software which I will be using is the Matlab software. The circular convolution is also known as cyclic convolution. Now, if I will take the circular convolution in time domain, say I have two sequences x1 and x2 and I will take circular convolution of two sequences in time domain and find out its DFT, it will be equal to the product of the individual DFTs of the two sequences x1n and x2n. Now, for sequences say xn and hn, which are periodic with period n, the circular convolution is given by the expression summation m is equal to minus infinity to infinity hm xn n minus m. Xn n minus m represents modulo n. That means the sequence repeats after a samples n. Here small m is an arbitrary parameter. Now first we will see the Matlab code of the experiment. Now I want to find out the circular convolution of the two sequences G and H. For that I have to enter the samples for the two sequences. So G is equal to input enter the first sequence. When I will enter this command, the Matlab command window will ask me this first sequence. Now you can enter as many as samples in this first sequence. Similarly for H is equal to input enter the second sequence. Now you can enter the second sequence. Now for determining the number of the samples in the two sequences, I will use command n1 is equal to length of G, n2 is equal to length of H. So n1 will have the number of samples in G, n2 will have the number of samples in H. Now in circular convolution, we have to make the number of the samples in both the sequences equal. So the number of the samples in the resultant sequence will be the maximum of the two sequences. So capital N is equal to max n1 comma n2. Now if the number of the samples in any of the sequences less than the second sequence, it will add 0 to that sequence to make the number of samples equal. Now I will take n3 is equal to n1 minus n2. Now if n3 is greater than 0, that means n1 is greater than n2. In that case, the number of the samples in sequence G is greater than the number of samples in H. So to make both the samples equal, we have to add 0 to the sequence H. So H will be given by H comma zeros bracket 1 comma absolute n3. That means we will create a matrix here which will have one row and absolute n3 as of columns. So absolute n3 means if n1 is having say 4 sample and n2 is having 3 samples, so n3 will be 1. So in that case, there will be one row and one column. That means only 1 0 will be added to sequence H. Now if n3 is less than 0, in that case the sequence H will have greater number of samples than G, so the zeros will be added to sequence G. Now for finding the circular convolution, according to the formula we have written the code. Say for n is equal to 1 is to n. In Matlab we will start the first sample from n is equal to 1. Now in this case we will see that small n is equal to 1. Now for I is equal to 1 is to n, that means I will have value from 1 is to n. Capital N is having value 4. So I will have value 1, 2 till 4. So first I will take say I is equal to 1. Now in that case J will be equal to 1 minus 1 plus 1, that means j is equal to 1. So I and j both are 1. Initial value of yn is 0. So here we will have yn is equal to g1 into h1. Now for n is equal to 1, I will take I is equal to say 2. Now j will be equal to 1 minus 2 plus 1. That means j will have value 0. Now here it is written if j is less than equal to 0. Then in that case capital N will be added to j. Capital N is 4 here. So j will have value 4. So I will have value 2, j will have value 4. So the previous value was g1 into h1. Now the next value will be g2 into h4, which will be added to previous value g1 into h1. Now I will take value then 3 and 4. Accordingly, g and h, product of terms g and h will be added to the previous terms. Now then we will move for n is equal to 2, then 3 and capital N, which is 4. And we will get the circular convolution of the two sequences. So for displaying, I'll use display the resultant signal is y. The result will be displayed here. Now I want to plot the results of the three sequences g, h and y. Now I'll use subplot 2, 2, 1, stem g, x label n, y label gn, and title will be given first sequence. Similarly for second sequence, I will choose the position second. So subplot 2, 2, 2, stem h, x label n, y label hn. Title will be second sequence. Now for the circular convolution sequence yn, subplot 2, 2, 3, stem y, x label n, y label convolution of gn and hn. Title will be convolution of given sequences. When I will run this Matlab command, the result will be shown in the form of waveforms. Here I can see three sequences. First sequence gn, second sequence hn, and the third sequence will be the convolution of gn and hn. Thank you. This is all for today.